go live. So, hey, I guess we are already live, Adam. So there's your 1 second. Hey, everyone, welcome to the Purple People podcast. I am Kyle West, accompanied this week by the one and only Mr. Adam Carlson.
Hi, I caught a little off guard here, but guess what? It's okay, because I guess the Vikings were caught off guard a little bit as well.
They were a little off guard. That's a good segue. Man, we are like 10 seconds into the show, and your segue game is already just like right on point, dude. We are at, what are we at? We are at 369 episodes of this.
You gotta go 369 like that. You're going to get low.
Like Mark Henry.
Do you remember that song, Get Low?
No?
Oh, well, come
yeah,
on.
Maybe.
You might be a little young for that one.
I was never much into the hip hop.
Oh, it was at every bar scene there was. Everybody's out there getting low. Get low,
yeah.
get low, get
we got
low.
Rod with us in the chat. I hope he is getting low to talk some Vikings football.
I wish I wasn't as low as I was after that Vikings loss. I was not expecting. I was expecting a competitive game. I hated watching the defense just struggle so much with that speed. We know that they're such a fast team, but wow, they can turn on the burners.
Especially right at the tail end of the game. It always is extra tough when you lose on the other team kicking a game-winning field goal and you don't got any shot to go back on the field. It's like, oh, it's just over. We're just done. Like those are always extra tough.
And it's weird because there were good performances that didn't look good, and there were parts of people's game that were great, but like as a whole, they were not so good. It was a weird game to try to dissect.
Yeah, it's going to be a weird game to sit here and talk about too, because there was some positives in it. It was also one where there wasn't like a glaring, I'm going to point to this play or this player, like a glaring, like that's the reason why we lost. It was kind of a lot of like in this week.
I lost a little bit of what you were saying there. I think that your internet kind of made a little bit of a problem. But yeah, this is a game that I think when the schedule came out, a lot of fans really knew that this was going to be a tough one. The Chiefs don't match up well against the Vikings at all, and having everything work out the way it did, it's disappointing because this was a game that the Vikings could have won, but it slipped through their fingers. But they already got to wipe that from their mind because they got a primetime game next week.
You betcha. Not that, you never want to make an excuse for a loss, but I do think at the beginning of the season, Kansas City was one of the games that I know both Kyle Smith and I, when we talked about it, pointed out to being a loss. I don't remember if you had it as a win or a loss, Adam.
Oh, I had it as a loss.
So I think we all kind of had it as a loss. We were all expecting it to be tough. With Patrick Mahomes being out, I think there was more hope that the Vikings would be able to
absolutely
come away with a decisive victory for it.
Well, then the Chiefs were missing two offensive linemen. Both their starting defensive ends were out. This is the Chiefs were reeling. They were hurt bad. The Minnesota should have been able to take advantage of that, but sadly, we didn't see that happen.
We also had injuries of our own. We also had Adam Thielen, who only played for just a couple plays at the beginning of the game. They had to pull him back out. He re-injured that hamstring a little bit, so he wasn't able to contribute. And you can see just how much of the offense runs through Adam Thielen when he is not on the field.
Diggs has had some amazing games lately, but this game, he disappeared.
Was not one of them. Yeah.
He was not the leading receiver, and the leading receiver surprised me, so,
Right? Do we have any quick hits or anything, Adam? We didn't really
we don't have anything written down. We talked about the Minnesota Rocker last week and all that stuff. I don't think that there was anything too big from the conference. Of course, Holton Hill got activated, which was nice. It was good to have him back.
Yeah.
Josh Doxson came to the roster, so that was good. Minnesota could use the depth right now, wide receiver there. And I got to admit, I didn't watch a lot of Doxson when he was playing with the Redskins, and I did see him during the draft process, but that feels like forever ago now.
Right, it really does.
Now, I apologize for that scratching. My cat is sharpening his nails, so yeah. He's got a post and he loves it.
Right, that's what cats do. Yeah, I don't know. I know that he was kind of considered to be a bust with his time down there in Washington. To be fair, it's the Washington Redskins. I don't know how anyone can succeed in that franchise. So between that and, you come to Minnesota, it's a fresh start, change of scenery, that whole thing that you get talked about a lot. Maybe that'll help him. Maybe he'll have good chemistry with Kirk Cousins this time around, and maybe it'll work out.
They've had some really good plays in the past. Kirk Cousins and Doxson when they were playing together, so fingers crossed.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm like counting on him to come in and like, oh, he's going to be our number 2 or number 1 or number 2 receiver right now. Like, if there's any kind of production from him, I feel like it's an extra little benefit, if that makes sense. It's like we're not counting on him, but if we can get something from him, that's awesome.
That's true, especially with the injury to Thielen. Who knows if he'll be out a while. Hopefully he won't, but
you never know.
Yeah.
Rod says that at least with the rest of the NFC North taking a loss, kind of helps us out a little bit. We all took a loss this Sunday, so we didn't lose.
Yeah, it was amazing to see the whole division drop their games.
That's what Thomas Buge says. It's like, we didn't really lose any ground, which is a defeatist kind of attitude, but I get it. It's like, well, we all lost, so.
Yeah, if you're talking about keeping pace in the division, it's all right, but that doesn't help when it comes to the Vikings having to beat the Packers and having to win the division. A loss is never something that you can kind of just brush off completely, because Minnesota's got to be more eyeing up a wild card spot right now, at least until they can beat Green Bay later in the season.
Right, and I really do believe it's all about momentum. Every game possible. That's why I do at the end of a season and teams start to play it overly smart. Nah, we'll try to rest starters and do this, and it's like, nah, you just got to go out there and you got to play every week and you got to try to win every week, and that's how you keep momentum going.
Well, the Vikings had some good momentum. They had won 4 in a row. They swept October, which was really cool, because I love October. It's my favorite month of the year, and have the Vikings go 4-0 in October, pretty awesome. But I just wish that momentum could have followed through and the streak would have continued into November.
Right. You want to go ahead and jump into some game balls and donkeys?
Sure. I'm just trying to sit in here while my cat is pushing all my mail off the table. Cats do that too.
Yeah.
Damn cats.
Does your cat like to eat bread? I used to have a cat that liked to eat bread.
He is very, very picky with what he eats.
Really?
He eats the wet centers, moist centers, hard cat food, and then the cat pate for a nice treat. So it's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get him to come on camera, but he has no interest.
We'll get him one of these days. We got Adder in the chat that says, annoyed with the loss, but hey, the Packers suck. So, yay.
I think the Vikings, they still got to face the Chargers later this year, right? So that's not really something to look forward to.
Yeah.
They're tough teams, a lot of good pieces. Strong run game, explosive offense. Yeah, it's going to be tough. But Dallas right now is the focus, and they're not going to be easy either.
So let's go ahead and jump in and do our game balls and donkeys, Adam.
We don't have game balls from Smith or Foley, so it's just the two of us, I guess.
Yeah, just the two of us.
And those in the chat, join in. Give us your game ball and donkey.
Yeah, give us your game ball and donkeys. Let us know what you think. So I want to do an honorary mention before we do the game balls. Now, hold on. You'll like this one. I love how well Vikings fans traveled to Kansas City for this.
True.
I thought that was really awesome. It was really impressive to see that amount of Vikings fans go out and support the team. I wish that they could have that the Vikings would have got a victory for everyone who had to travel back home after that. But it was still really cool to see that amount of Vikings fans out there supporting the team. When there was that moment where they were doing the skull chant, and
Oh
then the
yeah,
Chiefs fans tried to counter it, like that's a cool, fun, awesome moment. Like
it
that's really neat.
it actually sounded real cool on the broadcast too.
Yeah, I was like that. So I had to do an honorary mention just for all the awesome Vikings fans out there that support the team and travel with it. And that's some kick-ass cool stuff.
It really is.
My game ball is actually the same as what Thomas Buge has in the chat, and I didn't think I would ever give this man a game ball. I'm going to go with Laquan Treadwell,
Wow. All
who
right.
is yeah, you know what, man? It's like we've been really super tough on Laquan. After they cut him and brought him back, I feel like all the pressure is just like gone from him from a
Yep.
fan perspective. It's like, okay, it didn't work. He's gone, but he's back now. Let's just see him have success.
I got into an argument
Yeah.
on Twitter with a guy who was trying to tell me that Treadwell's return and doing what was asked of him upon his return, still being a good blocker, catching the passes that were thrown his way, including that tough one. I said it was a pleasant surprise, and he said, no, he's a first-round player. He's still a bust, and if that's what your expectation for him, then we just throw him out the window. And it's like, no, that's not really the case. You got to look at him as a free agent pickup who's coming in and producing. You can't put that first-round value on him anymore.
Yeah, for the first time.
They already washed their hands of that.
Right. And he's contributing to the team, which is kind of all that we've really ever wanted from him. Is like, oh, there's positive contributions from Laquan Treadwell. It's like, well, that's what we need. And I do hope he seems like he's a hard worker and a good kid.
Yeah.
We've always said that. I hope that this is building confidence for him. I really do. I want to see him have success.
I don't worry as much when I see that, Thielen's struggling to come back from an injury. BC's been doing pretty good filling in, which I like BC. He's a rookie, so it's going to take him a little bit more time to develop and, really just work things out, because that's how the NFL is for a rookie. Everything's super fast. But I think he's doing a pretty good job filling in, and him and Treadwell are coming in doing their best, and who knows what Doxson will be doing. And I don't know. The Vikings wide receiver situation is a weird one, but it's one that'll be kind of fun to watch going down the road.
Irv Smith, we talk about him a lot too. He's a tight end, but Irv Smith he really contributes in the passing game. So you got to include him in that conversation. And I think Irv is having a pretty decent little showing so far too.
I'm going to go over the defensive side of the ball for my game ball. And I know the Vikings gave up a lot of points defensively, and even this guy got burnt by the speed of Tyreek Hill when he was being a safety up top. But Harrison Smith had a really good game. It might not show up in the stat book because he didn't have a ton of tackles. He didn't have a ton of big splashy plays. But what he did have was a real nice pass breakup where he was able to just force the ball out of the receiver's hands. It seemed like the Vikings defense was once again playing off a bit too far, which this game against a speedy offense like this, you kind of have to, and you got to have that safety help up top. The bad part is the Vikings safeties aren't built for speed. The Vikings have the power hitting safeties back there, and that just didn't make for a good situation. But Harrison Smith still led the team in tackles with 8, 6 of them solo, had a sack on the day, and had that great pass breakup. Once again, Harrison Smith is that player that can just absolutely do it all, whatever's asked of him. He was like, he's a perfect fit for the Mike Zimmer defense because he can disguise and go in on a blitz. He can be in run support. You can drop him back in coverage and feel okay. The problem is that, like I said, if you match him up against these speedy players, and Kansas City is built on speed, then it's just not it's not going to benefit him to try to have that coverage.
Yeah, I agree with you, Adam. Like you said, though, Harrison Smith is totally one of those players that you can plug in so many different ways on the field. He's so versatile, and he fits with this Mike Zimmer's defensive scheme just so incredibly well. You're really getting there. He's really found a way to maximize his talent on the field.
This is one of the first games where Eric Hendricks didn't pop off the sheet at me.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, Eric Hendricks has that speed. He's solid back in coverage. But you put Eric Hendricks up against Travis Kelce and some of those Mecole Hardman, some of those speedy Chiefs wide receivers, and he's not going to have a real good chance to catch up at all. And out of the backfield, the running backs are speedy too. And you've got some good blockers on Kansas City. He's going to get absorbed sometimes. And yeah, this isn't a game where he popped, so it kind of rested a little bit more on Harrison Smith to make those stops, and he did. But sure, when your safety's making your stops instead of your linebacker, that's not a great sign because that means that offense is chipping a little bit further down the field.
That means they're getting up to that second level.
Right.
And you don't want to see them getting up to that second level. For the donkey, before I get to mine, Thomas Buse has a donkey to go with our offensive coordinator for poor play calls, especially those last two drives, to really help seal the victory for the Chiefs.
Yeah, things got a little conservative there, and I understand why they got conservative, especially based on Kirk Cousins had an interesting game. Let's talk about that right away before we go into this game ball and donkey, because I've heard people say that this game is Kirk Cousins' fault, and it's yes and no. When you're a quarterback and you come out and you throw 3 touchdowns, you did your job. You put those points on the board, and yeah, the defense struggled to stop Kansas City. But the Cousins praisers can talk about those 3 touchdowns and be like, "Hey, we gave the defense a chance." But on the flip side, you have Kirk Cousins completing half of his passes, and that's not going to move the chains. That's not going to win the time of possession. You're going to have your defense on the field a lot more, and you're going to have them chasing players around the field, and that's exactly what happened. So you've got a situation in a game where you've got good Kirk and bad Kirk. Good Kirk is throwing those touchdowns like that really tight window dart to Kyle Rudolph. I don't know how he got the ball through there. That was ridiculous. But then you've got the bad Kirk who's overthrowing a screen to Madison and just things aren't really clicking. The ball's either short or high. I don't know what it was in that game that had him a little bit jittery, but we got to see a little bit of good Kirk and bad Kirk, and fans are going to take out of that what they want. The way that they saw it coming into the game is likely the way they're going to see it after the game, and they can use that to fuel their argument. But it's a tough game because of that. You can't really put a ton of blame on him, but you can't praise him either.
He lacks that killer instinct. You know what I mean? With Kirk Cousins, where there are times where he can't quite put it away, and you've got to rely on the talent around him occasionally to be able to really seal it away, seal the deal. There was a fair amount of overthrown balls or balls that went kind of floaty for him in this one, and I don't know what causes that. I don't know if they were just not on the same page, or I mean, sometimes you just don't have your best of game, and I don't want to defend him too much, but he has played some pretty darn good football all of October for us. So he was bound to average out a little bit. I felt like he was playing really good. He kind of came back down. Now we hope that it's we can get him rolling and back where he needs to be.
Right. We got some good game balls and donkey chat in the chat here.
Yeah, Thomas Buse talking about how Dalvin Cook should have had a 200-yard game because you're right. They were 30th in the run. So there you go.
And the balance was absolutely gone.
Yeah.
Minnesota wasn't down far enough in this game for them to abandon the run. They should have been smashing the ball more with Cook. Madison only getting a handful of carries. That's not going to help.
Yeah. This is actually, I agree with Rod. My donkey for this week is going to Pat Elflein.
Oh, it was bad.
I had really, this was noticeably bad. I had really hoped that, he's going to come back. He's going to be healthy. Moving him from center to guard is going to benefit him. I am not seeing this working out.
This is the second game in a row that he actually got pushed all the way back into the quarterback for a sack.
Yeah.
And it's hard to ignore that. Once it happens, okay. Happens 2 games in a row, you just shake your head and you're like, wow. And it's strange because
This
I think that
happens,
was the
man.
only sack that Cousins took on the day, right?
Yeah, I don't remember him getting sacked a bunch.
Yeah, sacked
I
once for
don't.
8 yards, and it was that play.
Yeah. Yep.
And
That play
it
stood
rings so
out.
true because it stood out so much. You had the rest of the
Mhm.
offensive linemen kind of holding them off, and you just had this Pat Elflein getting pushed right back into him. I don't know why his stance is so high, why he's getting shoved back, but if it's a problem with a knee injury or a foot injury or something's not right, you got to get him out of there.
I mean, we've seen it with Matt Khalil. Not saying that he's as bad as what Matt Khalil was, but we've seen it where it's like you can have a player who's playing well get injured and then they're just not able to recover.
Yeah, they're not the
And
same.
that's just how difficult the offensive line is that an injury like that can take a player from being because I thought Pat Elflein was a pretty darn good player for the Vikings
Yeah, as a
pre-injury,
rookie, he looked
and
good.
that yeah, he looked good. He looked serviceable. And ever since then, he's just not really shown through. And they've given him plenty of leeway. But you got to wonder at what point do you start to look at who's below him on the depth chart? What do we need to do to help the team out here?
What's surprising is last year Brent Jones filled in pretty well at both guard
I
and
thought so
center
too.
when needed. And the fact that he's being inactive on game day now is just kind of surprising to me.
Yeah,
It's a little
it's a
frustrating.
it's a complaint that you can make about I think Zimmer and Rick Spielman is that occasionally they're not willing to look past, well, we drafted this guy.
Right.
And I understand them wanting to give the players that you drafted every opportunity to succeed, but occasionally, there's the cat, there's the star of the show. You look so unhappy that you did that.
He's not a cuddle cat, so holding him up, he's not a fan, but he knows
I
better
can
than
tell.
to
I can
claw me.
tell. But you know what I mean, Adam? Occasionally, it feels like they give drafted players too much of an opportunity,
Oh, absolutely.
which it's like that sounds stupid, but at some point, if it's not working, you kind of have to go another direction with it.
Yeah. We saw that with Josh Klein. Minnesota went out and got him. Yeah, they paid a little bit extra money for him, and they had some competition in camp for him. But Klein just absolutely determined that he was the better player at the position. So you go with him.
Yeah.
It's just the way it happened.
Adder wants to know what the name of your kitty cat is.
Oh, that is Mew. I was surprised when I brought him to the vet for the first time and the pill bottle said Mew Carlson. It's like, what? I guess. I mean, I never thought of a cat having a last name, but sure.
I
So
didn't know
formal.
people gave I didn't know people gave pets last names either. But
Yeah, it was interesting. So we're both going with Pat Elflein for our donkey, correct?
yeah, that's who I gave mine to. Is that who you were giving yours to?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I mean, I've given it to him the past 4 weeks. Why stop now, right?
Yeah.
When you can point your finger that often and that strong at a player and you can have evidence to back it up all the time, never a good sign. And especially for an offensive lineman, because most of the time, like I said, yeah, you give up a sack or something, you'll get your name set on TV. But when other fans, not like you don't go out to watch a football game, and you don't specifically watch the offensive line when you watch a game, do you, Kyle?
No, I don't.
But
I
you
do
definitely
more.
noticed that Pat Elflein was getting pushed around, right?
I do more because of this podcast. Ever since we started doing this podcast years ago, like it definitely makes me more like, oh, I want to watch like the offensive linemen and stuff. But yeah,
Tom
I
Spears
understand what you're
talking
saying.
about Dakota Dozier. He wants to see some Dakota Dozier in the game.
I'd be okay with that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
They've got to try something because right now, Elflein is just not getting the job done. Which is a shame because I saw the potential in him. He looked good as a rookie. But if he needs to work something out mentally or get to where he can be more confident in his knee, or if he's dealing with knee pain or whatever, something's got to get worked out. because right now it's just not working.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me.
So let's make a rundown here. We've got the game between the Vikings and the Chiefs. Minnesota fell short when the Chiefs kicked through a game-winning field goal in the final moments. Final score, Minnesota 23, Kansas City 26. Where you talked about the up-down game from Kirk Cousins,
Mm-hmm.
where he threw 3 touchdowns, but he also only completed half of his passes, 220 yards, 3 touchdowns. Got sacked once for 8 yards. It's hard to pick too hard at the guy that throws 3 touchdowns, but you do have to criticize him a little bit for that completion percentage. But I guess it is hard when Pat Elflein's pushing you backwards.
Right.
That's not easy.
I almost gave a donkey to Stephon Diggs.
It's hard not to because you expect so much from him. You want him to step up when Adam Thielen leaves the game. You want him to show that, people talk about him being a number 1 receiver, but a number 1 receiver steps up when adversity's around, and that's not what happened in this game.
Yeah, there were a couple plays where they weren't on the same page. Maybe the ball was a little overthrown. You don't quite know what's going on with that one. But I'm looking at it going receiving. He had 1 reception for 4 yards, 1 rush for 12 yards, and that's your stat line. You really we had talked
stat line.
Yeah,
not
no,
at all.
It's not. We had talked about how Thielen and Diggs work so well because they work together, and I think you see what happens when you subtract Thielen away from Diggs, and there's just not quite the level of success there.
As much as I enjoy Treadwell, as much as BC's been stepping up, or Irv's been doing all right, or Kyle Rudolph's been emerging lately, none of them are any substitute for having Thielen on the field. He doesn't. No. They aren't going to draw that kind of attention. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the running backs first, since they're next on the list here. Dalvin Cook could not get going. The NFL's leading rusher coming into the game, 21 carries for 71 yards, 3.4 yards per carry. That's not a horrible average. You can go through a game and do all right like that. If he'd have gotten 25 carries, and then Madison only had 3 carries on the day for 6 yards.
Don't understand that. What happened with that?
I don't know. When you've got your running backs and they're running the ball 24 times, and you got Kirk Cousins out there throwing the ball 38, the Vikings know that that's not the balance that they need in order to win.
Yeah, I don't understand what happened with that one. I wonder if they felt like they had to abandon their game plan early for whatever reason, or maybe this was their game plan all along. I don't know. Maybe they game plan thinking they were going to have to go, score for score with Patrick Mahomes, and maybe their plan was to rely heavily on the pass game, thinking that they would have to score a lot of points.
But when the game kicks off and you've got Kirk Cousins just struggling to complete passes from the get-go, and you really want to get him going, why not work a little bit harder to establish the run? Move the chains a little bit that way. Get him going on some quick slants and screens.
Because adjustments have always been difficult for Mike Zimmer. I think that's one of the biggest complaints you could make about him, is that underneath his leadership, the Vikings do not really do that good at in-game adjustments at halftime. Or
defensively, really I'll argue that defensively. But offensively, Mike Zimmer does put a lot of that on his offensive coordinator.
Sure.
So, yeah, I mean, adjustments did need to be made, and I believe they were, but I'm not sure they were the correct ones.
Mm-hmm.
And as a guy sitting at home on his couch watching the football game, it's easy to pick at. But when push comes to shove on the field, you've got to play towards your strengths, and the Vikings' major strength right now is Dalvin Cook, who has just been making an absolute impact on the NFL, proving to opposing teams as well as fans everywhere that he deserves to be mentioned among the best running backs in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, this is a situation where you've got to use what you've got going. And coming into the game, they tried to get Kirk Cousins going early, and it didn't work. So what do? You turn to your running back. You got Dalvin Cook back there. You get him going. You get that play action going, and it's tough, and I get that you want to get those splash plays. But when Adam Thielen leaves the field, he's a splash play guy. You need a splash play, Thielen will hook you up. And I know the Vikings, too, were hoping that Smith would be more of a splash play guy. And so far, he hasn't gotten involved in the offense as much because of that tight end split with Kyle Rudolph, which is another reason why I'm a little surprised that they put down the money to keep Rudolph around. But all that said, this is a complicated team. And making a lot of these adjustments and decisions before and during a game, it's tough. It really is tough, and I would not want to be in those shoes to have those decisions picked apart.
I was thinking about this too. I wonder who has like the final say on like a play call. Like who's, because you've got like Gary Kubiak like up above in the booth, and then you've got Stefanski on the field, and then you've got Zimmer as the head coach. Like who's like the final
I would think
dictator
Stefanski,
in this? Yeah,
that's where my money would be, because Mike Zimmer, I'm not going to say he's a hands-off coach offensively. He's got a vision for what he wants from the Vikings offense. He relies on his offensive coordinator and his coaches under him to get that figured out. So, I would say Stefanski.
But like you said, Adam, if we're being real, Zimmer has really got his fingers in the dirt on the defensive side of things.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you said, because that's his bread and butter. That's what got him this job. That's what he knows. He's going to make sure his defense is doing what he feels is right. So that's where he's going to make his adjustments. And he does trust all his faith, maybe sometimes a little more than he should, in his coordinators on the offensive side of things. Yeah.
We saw that last year when after a game, Zimmer would come up and say, hey, Flip, we need to run the ball more. Flip didn't institute more running in the game that week. Zimmer gets irate. Hey, we need to find more balance. No more balance the next week. And then the next week, Flip was gone.
Yeah.
So, we're seeing a bit more reactionary to the offense than being proactive. And I think Stefanski is kind of figuring that out, that we need to be more balanced. Even if the run isn't working, we need to keep doing it to establish it and get it going. Even if Kirk Cousins is struggling, we got to get him help, because Cousins, of course, we all know is best when it comes to play action. He is a play action guy. And if he can play action roll out, you've got a great chance for a successful play. He's great at reading the field as he rolls out, and it keeps the defense honest. So Dalvin Cook is more than able to keep the defense honest with his great running this season. The problem is that you got to find a way to establish that, and that wasn't done in this game.
Yeah, for sure. And it also goes to show you how you should never discount any team in the NFL based on where they rank statistically. Because Kansas City was, they're going to be terrible against the run, and the Vikings are just going to run all over them. I mean, look, unless the team is trying to tank, like the Miami Dolphins.
Hey, the Dolphins didn't tank this week.
Well, they didn't tank this week. But unless it's like the Miami Dolphins, I mean, these players are in the NFL for a reason. Even teams that are statistically maybe not that good can still shut a team down.
Well, let's be a little bit more honest here, too, because the Vikings seem to struggle a lot when a backup quarterback comes into a game. I don't know if it's a game thing or what it is. I said that in
the chat before the game, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. Every time the Vikings play a backup quarterback, they just have our number.
But let's be honest here. This isn't a situation where it's, the Bears starting quarterback where Trubisky couldn't play. Because let's face it, Trubisky ain't Pat Mahomes.
What? Shocking. That's your bold statement for the week, sir.
So when Trubisky left the game, I was like, it was an automatic upgrade at quarterback. But Mahomes, you got to game plan for him a lot differently. So if the Vikings were game planning on this game coming in to stop Mahomes, they got handed a completely different quarterback to deal with.
Yeah, and you got to hand it to Andy Reid for the Chiefs too.
He is good.
He's damn good, and they fit their offense to their core. Who's their quarterback? Matt Moore.
Yeah, he wasn't even playing in the NFL last year.
Yeah, they called him off the couch. Andy Reid called him off the couch and had him come in. And yeah, they were able to do what they had to do and make him look like a serviceable, decent backup in the NFL. Like
Yeah,
that was a good coaching job.
absolutely. Let's keep going down the line here. We have Vikings receiving. Treadwell led the way, 5 catches, 58 yards. And I don't think I will ever say Treadwell led the way again. So I'm going to enjoy that a little bit for a second.
Maybe next week. What if he went off and just had like a $125 and like 2 touchdowns in a game?
Oh, that would be something. This was a career high for
man.
Treadwell.
Was it?
Yeah, which is pretty cool. So the top 3 or the top 4 receivers, 5 even, are just so ridiculous because you don't expect a lot of these guys. Dalvin Cook, second, sure. Catching some passes out of the backfield, moving around. Third in receiving on the team with 2 catches. CJ Ham with 37. Which wow. Irv Smith, fourth, 33 yards on 4.
That was a great play. They just forgot to cover CJ Ham. And they just left him. They just left him.
Absolutely did.
Yeah.
And then you got Kyle Rudolph, 3 catches, 23 yards, and a touchdown. Amir Abdullah caught a nice little wheel touchdown where they forgot about him, too.
Yeah.
BC Johnson had a score, and those 3 touchdowns weren't quite enough to get the job done.
We're jumping ahead here a little bit, but I have to highlight this comment now before I forget. Poor Ying Yaj picked the Vikings in Survival League, and we lost. And now he is eliminated. And he's like, last year I picked the Vikings for Survival League, and we lost. So, Ying Yaj, Ying, you have to stop picking the Vikings in the Survival League.
I picked the Vikings once this year, and I don't remember which game it was, but I got a win out of it, so that made me feel good. It's always nice when you can pick the Vikings and you can get the win out of it.
Was it against Oakland? Did you pick them against Oakland?
I think it was Oakland, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what you said.
But it was nice to get that done with. Fumbles. Mike Hughes had a fumble. Holton Hill fumbled once and recovered it as well. Mike Hughes fumbled. Holton Hill recovered it. I don't remember that happening that way. I thought Mike Hughes fumbled a punt return and got back on it, but it doesn't have him down for a fumble recovery. Which is odd.
Mine says one fumble by Mike Hughes.
Recover.
Mine says one fumble by Mike Hughes, 1 recovery by Holton Hill.
Yeah, that's not really right.
Well,
I don't think that's right, but oh well. What can you do? I'm not here to argue the stats.
We're going to roll with it.
Yeah, whatever they say. Harrison Smith led the way with 8 tackles, followed by Mike Hughes with 6, Griffin with 6, Kendricks with 5, Harris with 5, Xavier Rhodes, Trey Waynes, Linval Joseph, all with 4. Sacks on the day, Harrison Smith had 1, Everson Griffin had 1. Danielle Hunter had a half that he split with Jaleel Johnson, which is nice to see Jaleel Johnson getting in the game. He's a big body that can get in and hopefully continue to develop and maybe even be a successor one day for Linval. Who knows? That'd be nice. Fidi Adenigbo had a sack as well. Stephen Weatherly had 1. Let's talk for a second about Stephen Weatherly and Afidi because those 2 guys both had pretty solid games, and the fact that they can both come in and contribute on a team where you've got pass rushing studs like Griffin and Hunter, it just is amazing the pass rush depth this team has.
Oh, we're absolutely spoiled in Minnesota. We've talked about this.
Yeah.
Numerous times. We've been spoiled for a long time. It's like, who goes from having Everson Griffin or from Jared Allen to Everson Griffin, and then you got backups who can come in. Like, we had Tom Johnson for the longest time who would come in, and it's like the rotational talent and depth on this team is like you can just count on Vikings defensive ends and the Vikings defensive front just being dominant.
I'm glad the chat here is having as much trouble understanding that muffed punt recovery as I am, because I didn't get it. Because a muffed punt should be a fumble. I don't know. What can you do?
You don't know. Here's the best comment for that one. Not sure. That pretty much sums it up.
Kicking on the day, Dan Bailey kicked through a 29-yarder. Sadly, he did miss one extra point, but it didn't really make too much of a difference in the outcome of the game.
Mhm.
Britton Colquitt had a solid game aside from that last punt that shanked off the side of his foot and put Kansas City in real good position to score. Still, the Vikings were able to push them back, but Kansas City fought back, picked up a first down, and ended up pushing through the field goal at the end to win the game. As a whole, Minnesota special teams have been pretty decent this year, but between that missed extra point and the shanked field goal or the shanked punt this game, it's tough to rely on a team, especially when your offense can't consistently move the chains and pick up first downs, and the defense is struggling to deal with the speed of the opposition.
Right. I wanted to bring up, just because I thought it was interesting, I was listening to Pat McAfee talk earlier today. He was talking about special teams units. I guess I didn't really realize that it's basically the long snapper's responsibility to make sure that the laces are facing the right direction on field goal kicks. I did not know that. I always thought that was kind of the holder, The holder's
the second line of defense there. He can make those adjustments, but he shouldn't have to.
The way Pat described it is that's like the third thing that the holder is thinking about, is that because they go by so quick. It's such I forget what he said. It's like only a couple seconds that you have to snap the ball and get it placed and get it kicked, because that's how quick defenders are coming at you. But that's essentially like the third thing on your list, is to make sure the laces are facing the right way, and you just don't have time. You don't have time to make that adjustment.
On a side note, to see Pat on SmackDown?
I missed it.
That was a good one. You missed a good SmackDown finally.
I was listening to him talk about how he got the call and how he had to fly out on Jim Irsay's, the owner of the Colts. He had to fly out on his private plane to reach that SmackDown taping, because he had no other way.
He had to hop in the middle.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is pretty cool. He's, in case you don't know, he's been doing the pregame show for NXT for a while. He's been doing the pre-show commentary,
right?
Yep, making the picks for their pay-per-views. So, not only is he a part of that, but he's got a contract to do that. But he'll be part of the XFL soon. And with what weird stuff is going on with Chris Carter on Fox, the Vikings might need
I am okay. So I didn't have it. I was at work earlier today when you sent that article. I didn't have a chance to read it. What's going on with Chris Carter?
Apparently, he's not happy with his role at Fox, and he wants to be a bigger part of the Thursday Night Football broadcast. And Thursday Night Football wants to invest a lot more in their tight ends that they have with Tony Gonzalez and with Gronk, and they see them as bigger draws. And he's definitely not liking that, is what I'm seeing from the reports.
Okay.
Which I understand. You're a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't know. I'll admit that I like Chris Carter. I do.
Okay,
but his football analysis isn't always the greatest.
I've always thought
I could see how Gronk brings in a younger audience too. So I don't know.
I definitely get it. I don't want to disrespect Chris Carter.
No, I don't want him either.
He's a Hall of Fame player. I love Chris Carter. I didn't always think he probably had the best take on things sometimes. Talking about, you got to have a fall guy and like stuff like that. It's just like, what are you talking about, Chris? Like, I don't necessarily know.
Well, 2 weeks ago, he said he'd be shocked if Pat Mahomes didn't play against the Packers. And now we're already, another week in, and Pat Mahomes still ain't playing. So I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if he's one of those two that kind of fell into the trap of commentating for the network to try to get views. Because I still believe that there are bonuses that go out to the Colin Cowards of the world, to the Skip Baylesses of the world, and the Stephen A. Smith, just to be sensational.
That when, and I don't really follow him too much now, but when Skip and what was the other guy, Stephen A. Smith, were on ESPN, where they would argue back and forth, that shit was as scripted and as fake as WWE.
It's bad.
All they're doing is cutting. Yeah, they're just cutting promos against one another. That's all they're asked to do, because you can tell. Shoot, you can even tell a couple of the videos I've watched. I watched one with Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless, where Shannon had to defend a point against Skip, and then halfway through it, he just agreed with it. He just like stopped and just like agreed with it. Because everyone in the comments is like, he started out not agreeing, and then he just agreed with him because that was his actual opinion on it. So yeah, we've always said, and what do we count? We're a nobody podcast,
right?
But we've always been like, we're just going to share our opinions.
I got no problem admitting when I'm wrong. I've been wrong about some of the draft picks I liked. I was wrong about outcomes of games. I was wrong about my biggest thing I was wrong about was I really did think that with some practice and stuff that Christian Ponder could be okay.
Yeah,
I firmly believed that. And then
I'll never forget the episode.
I'll never
forget the episode that you and I did, Adam, where we were like, and the Vikings got to re-sign Greg Jennings. Oh, Greg Jennings is such a benefit to this team. Oh, we love him. He's such a benefit. And
him and Mike Wallace are going to be such a good team together.
The very next day, they cut Greg Jennings. And you know what?
We even got the podcast uploaded.
Yeah. And you know what? We put it up anyway with a disclaimer that we were like, yesterday, this is what we thought. And we are not always correct. But that's what you're going to get, is you're going to get our opinions.
But I was right about quite a few things. I was totally right about Mike Wallace not fitting. I was, and I don't want to keep tooting my own horn here, but some of the things this team does just really can confuse you.
I remember you talking about Teddy Bridgewater before we drafted Teddy Bridgewater. You were high on him. You were high on him coming in pre-draft, and we ended up getting him. And Teddy made a fan out of a lot of us during his time here in Minnesota.
He's making more fans around the league too. He's been balling out there and for the Saints, and now that Drew Brees has come back, and all that means is that Teddy's done his work, and Teddy only signs that 1-year deal with the Saints, so he could have a big money signing this offseason. A team that whiffs in the draft or even doesn't want to go to the draft and wants more of an established player, they can make a lot of good decisions, and Teddy Bridgewater can make a lot of money signing that deal. But I don't know if he's going to want to.
I was just going to say, Teddy, and this comment, it's awesome that we're genuine, and we are genuine. Even when we're wrong, you get a genuine opinion from all of us here on the show.
Sure.
See, the thing about Teddy is that I don't think he is going to take a max contract from the Miami Dolphins and have.
He already turned down a deal with the Dolphins, from what I understand. Miami offered him a big contract, I guess, this offseason, and he decided to take less money to stay and back up Drew Brees, which it's a bold move. Most players take that money. You flash them money, your agent is going to be pressuring you to take that money to get the bigger cut, and Teddy's stuck. And it's a smart move. He's going to make a bigger contract.
He's going to make a bigger contract, and now he's probably going to have, instead of just the Miami Dolphins, now he's probably going to have a pool of teams. Yep. He's going to get to pick. He's going to get to pick from, and he's going to get to pick the situation best for him to come out and succeed. It is such a smart move from Teddy.
The Chicago Bears are going to back the truck up.
You think so?
They're going to try, I think.
Do you think they're going to cut bait that quick on? I can't even say his, what's his Trubinsky. Do you think they're going to cut that quick with him?
I think that if he keeps finishing the season the way he has been this year, there's no way they can go back.
Yeah, that's true.
With what they've invested in, in trading for defensive pieces and some of the talents they have on the team, how can a quarterback with Allen Robinson on their team struggle so bad? If Allen Robinson wasn't playing under Blake Bortles or Mitch Trubisky his entire career, he would be a star in this league.
Yeah. Yeah, you were
He'd
correct.
be an absolute star. We'd be talking about him with Julio. We'd be talking about him with AJ Green, among the greats currently playing. And because he played for these absolute donkeys, he's just struggling out there. He's in limbo.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to see Teddy in our division. I just don't want to see that. But
Well, the problem is that I don't think if Teddy doesn't decide to go where the money goes, I think he's going to want to play someplace warmer, maybe even in a dome. I don't see him wanting to play out in the wet, snowy weather. I don't see him wanting to go to Washington or any place like that where the field's just absolute yuck,
yeah,
or a team that doesn't have a winning culture or wouldn't support him or doesn't have a good support system. I mean, right now it's a little complicated as to where he would land because there are a lot of teams that might be looking to the draft instead, but I do hope the best for him. But yeah, like you said, Chicago's the only team in the division that would probably be eyeing him up, and I don't think he'll want to play at Soldier Field.
Teddy starting for a division rival would be a sad, sad situation. I agree.
It would be. I wouldn't like it. And I don't want to see Danielle Hunter and Linval Joseph smashing Teddy. I don't want to see that. Nobody wants to see that.
No.
I mean, once a year, fine. If it's got to happen, it's got to happen. But twice a year, no thanks. I'll pass on that.
It's tough because, it's like there have been players that I've liked who have left and gone on to find success with other teams.
Right.
But everyone loved Teddy. Well, I shouldn't say everyone. Like, there were lots of people who didn't like Teddy. But, man, everyone loved Teddy Bridgewater. He's such a likable guy that it's like how can you not? You can't. It's impossible for me to root against him ever. I don't want to.
Likely landing spot if he doesn't re-sign again to play under Breeze, which he very well could.
I could see him do that.
I think that we could see him in Cincy.
Yeah. I was thinking maybe Tampa.
Tampa makes sense.
Yeah.
But again, both those are outdoor stadiums. Tampa gets really wet, and Cincy has really bad weather a lot of the time too. Neither of those are ideal situations, but I have a feeling those two teams might want to throw quite a bit of money at whatever they're doing. But yeah, we all like Teddy, and we want to see him succeed. And I get that there are people that don't like him because, yeah, he doesn't have that big arm. He doesn't have I'm not going to say he doesn't have the it factor because I've heard that so many times from people on Twitter, especially during the draft process when there was the Johnny Manziel has the it factor. What's the it factor? How do you measure the it factor?
Okay, so I was reading an amazing article just about Teddy's comeback. I posted it on our Facebook page, just about Teddy's whole kind of like comeback journey after that injury,
right.
Where they were talking about how just his personality, about how he started like doing his little dance thing in the locker room for the Saints, and then it caught on, and like all the Saints players were doing it by the end of the season. It's like players gravitate towards Teddy Bridgewater. So saying that he doesn't have saying that he doesn't have the it factor couldn't be further from the truth.
I find myself drawn to him. I don't know if it's his charisma, his smile, or what, but there's just something about that young man that makes you want to like him.
Right.
And I understand, like I said, the people that don't enjoy the lack of deep throws because, there are a lot of quarterbacks out there with strong arms that can just chuck the ball down the field. Ben Roethlisberger made a living out of chucking the ball down the field. But Teddy Bridgewater isn't Ben Roethlisberger. He's not the strong-arm Blake Bortles kind of player. It's just not going to happen. What you do get, though, is you get that West Coast offense efficiency. You get some really solid passes. You've got a quarterback that'll make smart decisions, not turn the ball over a ton. And that you can win games with that quarterback. You really can.
We swear we still like Kirk Cousins here, everyone. we're still Kirk Cousins.
I'm supporting Cousins. I criticized him when They said that he was going to be the free agent signing. I criticized a little bit after the signing and gave some disclaimers that, yeah, it's not going to be all peaches and cream with Kirk Cousins. You're going to get good Kirk and bad Kirk, and we've seen that. I just want to see a little bit more good Kirk. And honestly, to get good Kirk for the last 5 weeks, and arguably that because I don't think Sunday was totally bad Kirk.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't terrible Kirk.
No. Definitely not. But I guess standards got to be raised a little bit for quarterback play in Minnesota, because for a while there, when we were getting our fix of T-Jack and Ponder and last leg McNabb, and it was rough for a while. That was rough. So I'd rather have some consistency with Cousins behind center and work with that than start Joe Webb in the wild card round of the playoffs and make him
starting Joe Webb on a Tuesday.
Hey, Joe Webb, you're a great mobile quarterback. Stay in the pocket, will you? Don't move.
Offensive mastermind.
Hey, at least Josh Freeman got a shot too.
I try to forget that happened.
It happened. It did happen. So yeah, every time that people complain about Cousins, in the back of my head there's a voice reminding me that Josh Freeman got a shot, and about that horrible Joe Webb game against the Packers, and just bad memories. Christian Ponder's Hail Mary pops in there every once in a while.
Oh yeah, the Hail Mary that fell short.
Not even
5 yards short.
I'd say 10, maybe even 15. It just,
yeah.
Wow, really?
I don't know, man. Christian Ponder, man, that's such an enigma. I don't understand, because there were a couple games that he had where you're like, this kid could pull it together.
Yeah, with Adrian Peterson helping him out, it made sense. I mean, he had some good games. Adrian Peterson was drawing so much attention that, Ponder was getting some things done in the pass game. And Dalvin Cook's trying to get that done for Kirk Cousins. A good running back can really help a passing game in a big way.
Yeah, definitely.
Without even touching the football on a screen pass. So, this is going to be a tough one. Hitting the road again, going to Dallas, primetime game, Sunday Night Football.
I was going to say, is it Thursday or Sunday?
I believe this one's Sunday. So Sunday Night Football. It's the Vikings already got their Thursday night game out of the way. I hate, for work purposes, I love Thursday Night Football, because Sunday I'm already working, getting the Walking Dead stuff done.
Walking Dead.
So I can kind of spread out my work a little bit that way. But Sunday Night Football is the worst for me. The absolute worst. Because now I've got the football game I got to deal with on Sunday night. I got the Walking Dead I got to deal with on Sunday night. I'm going to be up till 9 a.m. on Monday morning.
So if you meet Adam on Monday, don't.
Yeah, just don't.
Just don't do it.
And what stinks the most, and I know people in chat probably don't care about this, but I've got an order of articles I need to get done. I've got my ups and downs. Then I've got my review that I got to do for Undead Walking. Then I've got the MVPs I got to do for the Viking Age. And I got the Who Died for the Walking Dead and the MVP from the Walking Dead.
Thank God you said Who Died for the Walking Dead and not Who Died for the Vikings.
Trust me, I almost wanted to write that article this week for the Viking Age. So, oh, goodness.
Pat Elfline.
But the worst part of all is if I got them done in that order, I could schedule them out so that, I wasn't under really too much of a deadline at all. But jumping back and forth through the topics, it sucks. You got to change your entire mindset and change gears and remind your fingers that, I'm not writing about that anymore. It's not easy.
Right, I get it.
I mean, you've written, you've done photography where you've done even like wedding photography where you got to jump in and be like, okay, I'm taking pictures of some guests out here having fun. I got to go take, the pictures outside with the couple and the groomsmen and all that. So it's different, but it's kind of the same job and different responsibilities and everything. It's just weird.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm going to be... I don't know how I'm going to be able to absorb what's going on Sunday Night Football when I know that I've got so much more work to do. It's going to suck. But
Well,
I
Adam,
will say this
look,
Sunday night, I won't be in the Discord chat, so I apologize to those of you who have been in there every week. You're doing an absolute great job. I didn't even know you guys were in there for some of those weeks. Then I came back in there after being prompted over on Twitter, and I think, no, it was Facebook. Someone helped me up on Facebook and said, "Are you doing Discord this week?" And I was like, "Holy cow! I forgot that we were doing that." And there were people in there just chatting away.
Hey, check this out. It could be worse. Wherever Adder lives must be in a way different time zone, because games are starting at 5 a.m. for him. So,
See, I'm up at 5. Well, 5 a.m. is around my bedtime, so I don't want that to start for me at 5 a.m. But yuck.
right?
I still couldn't even do West Coast. Football games starting at 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. or whatever it is. Pass. Hard pass.
Yeah.
Those London games starting at 6:30? No. No, huge pass.
Wow, he's all the way down in Australia.
Well, explains
That's
the
cool,
kangaroo
dude.
there in the picture. The Viking
Yeah,
kangaroo.
that's super cool, man. That's awesome. We love all our fans, regardless of wherever you're from. But it's super cool that you're in Australia, man. That's neat.
So the Dallas Cowboys defense, highly underrated. They've got a lot of great pieces. They'll be able to give the Vikings fits in a lot of aspects. But Minnesota does have a lot of pieces that they should be able to toy with them a little bit, especially if they can get the run going early and we can get some efficiency from Kirk Cousins, completing passes at a high rate. Offensively, of course, Ezekiel Elliott's going to be the guy to keep your eye on. He has a tendency to tear up any team, and he can go off for multiple touchdowns in a game if not tended to well. The good thing here is that the Vikings are a solid tackling team. They should be able to keep everything in front of them during this game and limit pickups, especially on screens, especially to the running back. Of course, this means that the Vikings secondary will be tasked with guarding these receivers. And if they've got to play a little bit tighter, they got to play a little bit smarter, and they've got to make it work.
I expect that the game plan will be to use Harrison Smith as that safety valve. Having him kind of sniff towards the line of scrimmage so that he's able to help contain any potential run plays like that.
Yeah, the Giants are playing right now. I don't have the game on because my internet out in the middle of nowhere here. Streaming the game and streaming this session would not be good. That would just be bad. Like I'm that far out in the county, out in the country here.
Yeah, you and Kyle Smith are both living in Little House in the Prairie internet territory right now.
Oh, this is not a sexy internet situation out here. When it takes me a couple days to download a video game, that's not a good sign.
Oh boy.
Hey, but Call of Duty's worth it. Speaking of that, I got to rant a little bit because the Vikings hosted a live stream of the Call of Duty. And during that stream, there was Stephen Weatherly and BC Johnson, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were going up against two players from the Minnesota Rocker, which is their new team that the Vikings are part owners in. And they went head-to-head in a couple games of 2-on-2. And then they would decide to go into some public lobbies, and they played team deathmatch and then 2 games of domination. I'm a little concerned for the Minnesota Rocker because the two Vikings players, which they're not good players. Don't get me wrong. They're not good pros. They didn't camp it out and make it boring gameplay or anything. But the team of those 2 professional Call of Duty players, even with 2 Vikings players, they didn't win a single game. When you've got 2 professional players on your team, you should be absolutely killing it.
Right?
You should be wiping the floor with anybody. Like, if you were to play, I'm not saying these guys are like Shroud or Doctor Disrespect or any of the famous gamers out there. Just not everyone's going to be dizzy on Apex or anything like that. What you've got is a situation where you got professionals on your team, 2 professionals, and you're just getting absolutely handed to you. I watched that entire live stream. I watched it late because I didn't know it was going live, so I watched it afterwards. And I was so confused. I couldn't figure out how these 2 pros were struggling so badly. And it's weird because you watch that, and Weatherly and BC were just having a ton of fun, which was great. And they had the Minnesota Rocker merch on and everything. But to hear the professional gamers complain the same way that casual players do, it's funny. Because you're like, oh, well, he's just camping a shotgun. Shotguns are so overpowered in this game. And it's like the same complaints you hear from people that aren't good when they get beat. And it's just
I know what you mean, Adam. I play a little bit of World of Warcraft, but it's always a lot of fun. It's always a lot of fun, at least for me anyways. I enjoy watching the people who are really good. And you get a really good group of people who are doing a raid or something together in Warcraft. Is like a lot of fun to sit down and watch, or to watch the people who can solo through areas where you're not supposed to solo and shit. It's like you watch players like that and you're like, wow, that is a lot of fun to watch. So I get what you mean on what you expect from
a professional gamer.
A professional gamer.
It's just odd. Let's finish up. Let's talk about some WWE news to finish up.
What are we talking about? What happened in WWE that's related to Minnesota?
Brock Lesnar, he's quit SmackDown.
Oh yeah, I read about that. So they lasted a grand
Monday Night Raw.
They lasted a grand total of 3 weeks after this draft, where everything is going to be final, and they won't do anything. And then 3 weeks later, we're just moving people around again.
Yeah, this is their new loophole. Is they're just going to have people quit one brand and sign with another. Because I guess Brock Lesnar is going to bring that belt over to Raw, and then The Fiend is going to make the jump over to SmackDown, is what I've been understanding.
Oh.
The good news here is that I think Adam Cole is staying put.
Oh, yeah? Good.
Adam Cole, baby.
Because NXT.
That's all I really have for this week.
I was just going to say, NXT is about the only enjoyable aspect of that company right now.
Wednesday nights are so good. If you're a wrestling fan and you can watch AEW and NXT on a Wednesday, you got to be feeling good, because that's just entertaining television. No matter which you choose to watch first, watch them both. I watched the Ring of Honor Unauthorized last night. That pay-per-view, Colt Cabana, just having fun. It was silly wrestling. It was absolutely silly, but it was one of the best times I've had watching wrestling on a pay-per-view in a while. So yeah,
I remember back in the old.
Even Ring of Honor is fun.
It's not like back in the old days, Adam, where you had to watch either Raw or Nitro, and unless you had a second television set and a VCR and were taping the other program, you just couldn't watch it. It's like there's so many ways to watch everything. I don't understand people who have to. I only watch AEW. I will only watch NXT, or you have to be in New Japan. It's like, if you're a wrestling fan, there's a wealth of content out there right now, and there's no reason why you have to pick. There are good shows, there are bad shows, there are ones that I prefer more than others, but you can watch all of it.
Yeah, and you got so many options out there. Even with all the WWE brands out there. Then you've got AEW, you've got Ring of Honor, you've got Impact, you've got New Japan, you got the Women of Wrestling, which has actually been pretty entertaining too lately. Just the number of programs out there available. And the NFL's kind of the same way. People that kind of poop all over the XFL. I enjoyed the XFL last run. I had fun with it.
I did too. I was
AAF.
liking,
AAF was a nice substitute to be able to watch football when there wasn't NFL going on.
yeah, AAF was entertaining. I enjoyed it. There were some fun plays, and there were some players I was starting to get to know, and I'm disappointed at how that ended. I'm looking forward to seeing what the XFL is going to be able to do, especially doing things like bringing in Pat McAfee. It's going to make the product more interesting, I think.
Oh, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it, and I hope other fans are too, because this could be another way to get more very talented players, give them more opportunities to be able to come to the NFL. Because we all know that XFL, yeah, it's not the NFL. You're not going to see
it's never
that caliber players on a regular basis. But the NFL isn't perfect. You've got a lot of players that slip through the cracks. Really talented players who deserve another opportunity, or players that may have struggled the first time through and want to make a better run and prove themselves again. This is an opportunity for them. I loved the story of Charles Johnson in AAF. Charles Johnson went out and he absolutely dominated the AAF. And he used that, and he wasn't ever going to return to the NFL. But when the AAF folded, and NFL teams realized Charles Johnson, he's got the skills. He can make this happen. So he ended up getting another shot out of it, which was awesome.
Yeah, man. I think it's cool too. The only reason, why I've never really got into like Arena League football is because Arena is too far removed from like actual football. Maybe I shouldn't say actual football, but from like NFL football, it's too different. The field's too short. The rules are too. It just doesn't feel enough like the sport that I love.
Watching a receiver be able to go in motion and run up the line of scrimmage just feels weird.
That's kind of cool, but I don't mind that so much. Like, I always thought back in the day, like, wouldn't it be awesome if you could have just fucking give Randy Moss even more of a head start? give him a fucking running start to blow by people. Like, every play, just a go route with him. That's probably why they don't do that in the NFL. Just to imagine how quick players are, giving him a head, like a running start with it. But we're way off subject for this podcast.
Hey, we're bringing it back in. We're reeling it back into NFL and Randy Moss.
Yeah. There you go.
But yeah, that's all I have for this week. You got anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think we should probably end it because I have to.
Yeah, I don't know if you're freezing for other people during the stream, but I think that you've only freezed like 3 times, which ain't too bad.
Every now and then.
But I do want to thank everyone for joining us here in the chat. It's always nice to have you guys here. We've been doing a pretty good job of keeping up with getting the show up on social media and getting it up on iTunes and Podomatic, Stitcher, all our usual locations. So we do appreciate you guys.
We're on the Apple Podcast thing too. I think that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, Podomatic is great for that. And I do want to thank you guys who back in the day did help us when we were trying to get off to a hot start and made some contributions to help us out, because that meant a lot. It really did. And now that we're able to do this for you, we've got it set up to where we're not spending a lot of money and we're still able to come through and offer so much. And to be able to find StreamYard too, when we thought that this podcast was going to start struggling after the loss of Google Hangouts, things have just
turned around. It was looking grim there for a minute.
It really was. Yeah. The options out there didn't look good, and then I found this, and I said, "Hey, let's check this out." And I don't think we're ever going back.
No. Kyle Smith and I had brought this up at the end of one podcast too. I'll bring it up again now, is that there is a paid version of StreamYard that we've kicked around, maybe upgrading to eventually, and we want to know kind of what the people who listen think as to whether or not it would be something they would care about. Some of the occasionally I've been a robot, according to the chat, is that we can do some things like we can have like an intro, we can do fancier effects, we can do, I forget what all is involved with it, but you guys will have to let us know if you're interested in seeing like some more features on the chat, or if you're pretty cool with where we are right now, like give us some feedback and let us know what you think.
Yeah, some major things with that upgrade is that we'll be able to include some live videos. We'll be able to do an intro and an outro each week. We'd be able to go live to Facebook and do a stream there as well as we're doing it on YouTube. So yeah, there's a lot of things going on with StreamYard that could be a lot of fun. For now, we're kind of keeping it basic and just having fun. We like that you guys are finding us on YouTube, or later on coming back to YouTube, or finding us on iTunes, Podomatic, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're finding us. We're around.
The Facebook part, right? The Facebook part of that one in particular, I think, is really interesting because I would be really curious to know how many people would watch or listen to the show if it was available on Facebook like that. Because if that would give us more reach and more interaction from people, then we will definitely look into doing that. But like I said, you guys have to let us know if that's something that you're interested in. Because if it's not a feature anyone's going to use, then there's no point in us paying for it.
Absolutely. I want to end up by plugging, though. I want to thank those of you who head over to thevikingage.com, check out my work over there. This week, I've had a little bit of laptop problems, so I'm still getting my MVPs out, but you can see my ups and downs from this week's game. And I get a little bit vicious, but every once in a while, I hate talking about negative things. I try to be a positive person, but every once in a while, you got to point some fingers. So I pointed some fingers in this week's in this week's article. Over on Undead Walking, you can read some more of my stuff over there. That show just had season 10, episode 5 air on Sunday night, and it was a bloody one. There was some deaths, some bodies hitting the floor in this one, and it was an interesting episode. And so far, season 10 has been quite good, and you can kind of tell what it's building up to, which makes it even more exciting. Of course, you got the Whisperers going on now, and I think they're the coolest bunch of villains from the comic book series. So be sure to check that out. We do have some pretty cool stuff going on, too, from Undead Walking. We got a little bit of a surprise brewing for our regular audience over there. We got something cool going on this week that we're going to be revealing, and hopefully it'll get some nifty attention. Otherwise, that's all I've really got from this week. You got anything you want to plug?
No, I think I'm good for this week's episode. I've talked enough.
All right. Well, then we will call this good. I do want to thank everyone once again for joining us in the chat and supporting us. It's been really great. Get your picks in for the Survival League. Don't lose because you don't make a pick. At least make a pick. Even if you're wrong, so what? Just make a pick. You should be getting a notification from Yahoo when so you don't miss your pick. If not, just kind of log in the day before the game or whenever leading up to the game and make a decision. But yeah, good luck to everyone still in, and hopefully we can get a winner, because I would like to see someone walk away with a really cool Vikings prize package.
Yeah, same here.
So we'll be back next week, talk about the Dallas Cowboys. Thanks again, everyone, and remember to stay classy, Minnesota.